What is up, YouTube? Welcome to the dawn of van life's van. So for a while now, I've been wanting to talk about my fridge. So let's talk a little bit about my history with refrigeration as a vehicle dweller. When I started out in my car, I had a cooler. And I had no intention of doing anything else but a cooler. It was a small cooler, literally the cheapest thing that I could grab out of the store. Like, it was not nice, it was not a Yeti, it was not a high-end cooler. It was literally the most cheapo cooler that I could get out of the store. And so I started the process of cooler and ice. And originally that was like my whole plan, is I was just going to work with coolers and ice, and I did that for the better part of a year. Even after I got into the van, when I got into the van, I just did not have the power system to run anything that was going to require electricity, and I stuck with having a cooler. It's only this past year when I really started thinking about getting a solar panel and power that I even considered the idea of having a fridge. I got annoyed with ice really, really quickly, and it wasn't even the expense, because ice doesn't cost that much. It was just like the water would melt, and then you had this cooler full of water, and so there was this extra task in getting rid of the water. And perhaps if I was a camper traveler and not a city dweller, it would have annoyed me less. But it's like, you can't just like well, you could, but I consider that kind of rude. You can't just open your door anywhere and everywhere and like de-water your cooler. Like I said, it wasn't a nice cooler, so it didn't hold ice specifically for any like really decent amount of time. And if I was going to spend money for something, I was going to spend money for an actual fridge. I was not going to get some super high-end cooler. And ultimately, just the process of ice got on my nerves. So within a couple of months, probably, of having my cooler, I started not getting ice at all. And I just kind of relied on cold things being next to cold things. It was a small thing anyway. I think it was whatever the size of my original, I think it was like 16 liters or something like that. 15 liters. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like a 15, 16 liter cooler. If you go back to my video about my van build and the Kaluli fridge that I originally bought before I bought this one, those details should be in there. But it was about a 15 or 16 liter cooler. I would buy things at the grocery store, and the goal would be to consume those things, as soon as possible. I wouldn't get things that needed to last a long time. There are also things I just flat out stopped buying. I stopped buying things that had the potential of going bad in the middle of summer. When it was winter, I could make different choices because the van was overall cooler, so it was easier to keep things in a cooler without worrying about the ice. And you can do a cooler and not do ice like all the time. But I got to a point where it was kind of annoying that I always had room temperature drinks, and this included water. Like, I never have cold water. Now I can like put water in my water bottle. Like, I could take this guy. Give me a second. I could take this water bottle and I can fill it with water. And let's say I want to make sure that I have cold water in the morning. I'll put my little filter on there. This is one of those filter bottles, so no matter the quality of water, it sort of filters as I drink it, and this is good enough for me. I don't need anything really detailed. And then I just throw it in the fridge. And if I leave it in there overnight, then I have cold water in the morning. And if I have 2 water bottles, I can rotate them out. So this fridge gives me so many more options for me than I felt like I had with the cooler. That being said, my favorite phrase, I still feel like you can start van life without a fridge. Like, it's not necessary. You can certainly do the cooler thing. Chrome's van build is way more advanced than mine, and he doesn't have a fridge. There are people like with really gorgeous high-end builds who decide not to do a fridge and have a cooler instead. There's the options. I have had so many people tell me about dry ice, but my thing is I don't want to depend on finding that. Like, it's one of those things that's not everywhere, and so I don't want to depend on being able to find dry ice, or the blocks of ice that people say last a little longer. And basically what you most commonly find is those little tiny ice cubes that turn into water really, really fast. And so for me, it was annoying. And it was easier just to rely on things, having a longer shelf life than advertised. And I never got sick. And there was never anything wrong with me. I mean, like, nothing that I can track. I don't know. I might be internally dying of something from this past year, who knows. But as far as I know, I'm perfectly healthy, in the most general sense of the word, and I did not have conventional refrigeration for most of this past year. When I say this past year, October to October, because October of 2019 was when I really started focusing on getting the solar system, getting my power up to a level where I could run a refrigerator. And really, solar was about the refrigerator. If I had never gotten a refrigerator, I might have just still been charging like power banks while I was driving. Like, solar wasn't really necessary until I wanted a fridge. Like, for me, the two things came together, and I also knew the expense of all of it was quite a bit higher than I could handle, at least as I initially calculated it out. If you've seen my earlier videos, I bought the Max Oak Bluetti and a Kaluli thermoelectric refrigerator, thinking those two things might work out together. At the end of the day, the Max Oak 200 watt could only run the fridge for about, I think it was like, I don't remember. It was a 30 watt pull on a 200 watt device. I think what was it, like 8 hours or something like that? And the Kaluli varied from 30 watts to about 50 watts. I will say this about the Kaluli thermoelectric cooler. If you just need like a mini fridge in like a house, or to hold milk next to a coffee station or something like that, when I tested this device out in a house, it actually performed super great. And so I was super excited about it. And I just figured out that the Max Oak Bluetti could not run it for enough time that it was worth it. And having to cut it off and cut it back on and wrap it up, like, I didn't want to deal with all that. I work every day. And ways for van life to get really, really annoying is to add on unnecessary tasks. So I really didn't want to add on those unnecessary tasks. And people who are casual camping for weeks at a time, in more remote areas, maybe these things bother them less. But especially after a year, at first I was trying to be like, the Bob's Wells type of nomad. And there are things I've figured out in this past year that just don't work for me and my lifestyle. And it's okay to say, you know what, it's great that works for you. It bothers me. Like, when I had my cooler and I was happy with my cooler, people were like, man, you need a fridge. And I didn't need a fridge. I did not need a fridge. I don't need a fridge now. I want one, and so I worked towards getting one because I decided I wanted one. There is no point where I felt like I needed it. There was a point where certain things were getting annoying and were inconveniences, and having a fridge could change some of those inconveniences. Like when it was extremely hot and I would buy the bags of salad and they would wilt faster than they did in the wintertime. In the wintertime, I could buy my bags of pre-mixed salad and they would last until I could do, usually if I had 3 bags, that's 6 meals. And if my next 6 lunch dinners were just a pre-mixed salad, then that was fine. If I wanted it to last any longer than that, or I ate something else in between, it was usually just enough time for the 3rd bag to wilt. Or sometimes even if I ate them in series, it would wilt because it was hot. So the van was getting hot. And even with ice, I don't really know how much that cooler situation would have been supplemented. So what I did was I started eating different things. It would have been possible to survive without ever getting a fridge, but my quality of life, I knew, could improve with a fridge, and so I made a choice to make it a priority. And so that's when I began the solar journey, of which the fridge was a critical part. Like, it wasn't a separate part. Again, these two things had to come together. There was no way I was going to be able to run a fridge without also having a power system that provided enough power to run it all day. There were power station options, but they were all ridiculously expensive by comparison. Like I said, I bought the Max Oak Bluetti specifically to try to use it as an exclusive fridge battery, and didn't really understand the math until after I had the Kaluli and the power station, and realized that it wasn't going to work out. Because you have to realize, like, it would discharge and then it would have to be recharged, and there just wasn't enough discharging and recharging to make it not sort of insane to be like watching the fridge and watching the power station, watching the fridge, watching the power. Like, that's no way to live. And so it just wasn't going to work out. And so almost as soon as the Kaluli left the house where I was pet sitting and moved into the van, it was a giant paperwork weight. And then also, where it was sitting, I had it secure, but there were a couple of times where it fell. Because, you know, somebody cut me off and I had to brake really fast, and so it would break free of where it was secured, and fall. And it was secured in a way that the vents were also free in the back and the door could open. So this is a good time to talk about front opening fridges versus chest. This is something I didn't realize. Cold air escapes much more easily in this position. Because, yeah, as soon as the door opens, like, whew, these actually hold cool air a little bit better, which I learned later. So yeah, I don't know why, but this is what I've heard. I was going to try to make up some, like, science. I don't understand the science, but apparently doors that open this way release cold more, than things that open this way. Now, if you think about it, in chest fridges, you have, a lot of times you have stuff stacked on top of each other. So you have your one thing, your other thing, and then your other thing. And the one good thing is, like, if you open it up just long enough to pull this thing out, this stuff is still, like, has the pressure of cold on top of cold on top of cold. So it would make sense that those things are staying a little bit cooler. The bad part is sometimes you want this and these two things are on top. So in order to get to this, you have to move this, and you have to move this, and then you have to take this out, and then you have to put these back in, and then you prepare whatever this is, but maybe you don't use all of it, so you need to put it back in there. So to put it back in there, you have to open the chest fridge, and then you have to pull this out, place it back in there, put this on top, put this on top. So that's and it was the same's true with a cooler. It's not just chest fridges. So that's sort of the disadvantage to coolers that open like this as opposed to fridges that open like this. So that was the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned is the thermoelectric cooler has no variation. So once it isn't like it hits temp and then it starts pulling less power. It's pulling its wattage the entire time. Now, the cool thing about some DC fridges is that's not true. It will reduce and increase its power consumption based on the temperature in the cooler. So you can set a temperature, and its goal is that temperature, and the temperature can have a variable. So it's like it needs to stay between this and this. So once it hits here and it gets a little bit colder, it's going to increase its power enough to get things back to cool, and then, like, just hold it and at a reduced power capacity enough to keep you there. And then it's like, temperature's going up, time to adjust again, and continually adjust to get you back into your zone. Anyway, I went forward with, getting a solar system, getting batteries, and once I had those, my next little chunk of money, which was actually YouTube money, got me a fridge finally. And I ended up going with, and people gave me a lot of suggestions, but I ended up going with, give me a second, the Kuppet is Kuppet, portable refrigerator freezer. All right, so here's the book. It comes in 3 sizes, which is, let me look this up. It comes in a 16 quart, 24 quart, and 35 quart model. I have the middle one. I have the 24 quart, which is bigger than both my cooler and my refrigerator. Those were both like 15 or 16 liters, I think. So Kaluli has a 16 quart, which would be close to a 16 liter version. But since I was going to use the space between the seats, which is where I ultimately decided to put my fridge, I wanted it to be as big as I could get it. The fridge is $239 on Amazon, and the 24 quart runs just underneath the arms of this chair and fits in between the seats. Now, what I loved about the Kuppet design, because I got a lot of recommendations for like Apicool and Dometic. Dometic is ridiculously expensive. Apicool seemed fine, but the dimensions weren't as nice as this. And what I liked about the Kuppet's design is it was really, really slim. Like, it didn't have a bunch of weird corners or weird curves. It was basically a rectangle with a door. And so I wanted the best rectangle that could squeeze in between these 2 seats. Now, the only sad thing, what I liked about the Kaluli not being here and being in the other direction, was that I could still walk in between these seats. And the reason why I pulled out the console that was between these 2 seats was so that it would be easier for me to get from the front to the back without having to come out of the car and come around and come through the side door. I almost exclusively now go out the door and come through the side door. I can climb over the fridge and get to the bed. I've done it, but it's not fun. And it's completely awkward because I usually have to put these down, and I can fit in between here, but it's really not fun. So I'd rather just do the loop around. Like, if I was ever really in trouble, I can climb, but it's not fun, and it's not my preferred way to do it. So yeah. When these arms are down, I can't really open the lid, but that's okay because I just bring these up, and then I can like open this up, and bam, everything's good. It's really easy to reach and get to it from the front. It's fit the space perfectly. There is enough room for the vents down there, which is good. I can also slide it back a little bit when I need to and push it up. And that space is much better served holding a fridge than it ever was holding the center console unit. So here are the technical specs for anybody who's interested, for the different sizes. It does have, in addition to the DC power supply, an AC power supply. So I'll probably never use this, but here's a big power block. And then here's the plug that you attach to the big power block. So that is super cool. The fridge has 2 modes. It has an eco mode and an HH mode, which is a quick refrigeration mode. I don't know what HH stands for. It has a vehicle battery protection system, which it's not obviously running off my actual vehicle's 12 volt, but that means that it's aware of its voltage pull from the batteries, I think. But I exclusively keep in an eco mode. And there's a bunch of settings in here that I don't actually know how to do, but I was able to very quickly like plug this in, turn it on eco mode, and set a temperature. I didn't know what temperature to set because I literally have never set temperatures on the fridge. They've been plugged in. I put stuff in them. They stay cold. But I was very easily able to turn it on. It powered right on. And it's been running like a champ ever since. But really the real question is, and this is why I don't like to review things as soon as I get them. I like to have them for a while before I review them. The real question is, how has it worked out? And the truth is, I have never been happier. I'm able to have like cereal and milk in the morning again if I want it, which I haven't had for the longest time because milk just didn't seem like a smart thing to buy. I'm able to buy things and know they're gonna last. I'm able to not eat all of something. I felt obligated to eat all of anything I made because storing like leftovers wasn't really a thing, and now I can do that, so that's really nice. My feelings about the fridge are like overall positive. It's worked out great to have it in between the seats. I almost feel like destiny knew that I eventually needed a fridge to live there, even though I thought I wanted it for the pathway to get back here. Really like the bed is really long, so it's kind of colliding with it a little bit anyway, but I was able to just kind of wiggle my way through here before, and now I can't because I can't just step down and step around. I have to actually climb over the cooler, but I used to climb over the center console that was there as well. No regrets about pulling that center console out. It was literally like a junk collecting piece of uselessness, and now I'm able to have a fridge there. Sometimes it's really cool that while I'm driving I can just reach down in the cooler and grab a cold drink and have it like right beside me. It's also really bad because it's easy to snack, but like I have pickles in there right now that I like to snack on, and pickles literally have like no calories. They're basically like water vegetables. I don't know what to say. Like, things worked out great. I really love this fridge. I love having a fridge. I think it was the right design choice. And really, for me, it was about it fitting in this spot. Because a lot of the other fridges were, like, awkwardly shaped. And this one was smooth on all of the sides. I love the eco mode. I love that the fact that it has, like, you know, low voltage battery protection. And I've seen it, like, you know, jump in its temps when needed. It's just, and like, if I don't have a lot of stuff in there and it's not stuff that's gonna go bad a lot, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm happy with it. Like, I don't even know how else to evaluate it, except to say, like, it's performing great. I have no complaints. I would highly recommend it to anyone. I would recommend a DC chest fridge over other options. Skip thermoelectric coolers, only because of the constant power draw. They were really cheap and they seem like a really great idea, and they look like cute little mini fridges. I think those are absolutely positively great for dorm rooms and coffee tables and things like that, but they are absolutely terrible for van life. I feel like maybe other people have had success with them, but all I've seen is people either go cooler or DC fridge, and there's a reason thermoelectric coolers, even though I thought I knew better, have not ultimately been like the greatest solution for full time. I'm sure for short trips where you're just going to plug it in long enough to get from point A to point B, having a thermoelectric cooler is great, but I think if you're just like actually going to use it as your 24-hour all of the time fridge, they're not great. So don't even try it. I have literally not turned this thing off since I've turned it on. As you can see, I don't have it wrapped, which is another way to like preserve the cold, and it's still working out fine. Like, I have no plans to wrap it anytime soon, because it's been doing great. Like, I have not needed to turn it off since I turned it on, and that's sort of the ideal way you want to run a fridge. This has been a very rambly video. I never really knew how I wanted to review the fridge, so that is sort of added to the rambliness of this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about the fridge, or fridges in general, or coolers, or suggestions, or thoughts, please feel free to drop those in the comments. And of course, as always, I am an Amazon affiliate, and so there will be an affiliate link in the description for the fridge. If you buy anything after clicking on my affiliate links, I do get a little bit of money. That money has helped me be able to buy a fridge. It's helped me be able to buy a charge controller. It's helped me be able to buy stuff for the van that I otherwise wouldn't be able to buy. Because I try to use my Amazon affiliate money, since it's so low, to contribute to things I need for the van that I otherwise wouldn't treat myself to. So, like, if you want to buy something from Amazon that's not the Cuppet fridge, feel free to hit the Cuppet fridge links in the description, and otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. If you're curious about my history with trying to have a powered fridge for the van, feel free to check out this playlist about the Kaluli fridge and the Max Oak Bluetti test, and how they ultimately failed. If you are interested in joining our community, please check us out on Patreon. See you next time!